Psychologist and author Frances Ward Weller writes, "The work of the mature person is to carry grief in one hand and gratitude in the other, and to be stretched large by them. How much sorrow can I hold? That's how much gratitude I can give. If I carry only grief, I'll bend towards cynicism and despair." In times of threat, fear, anger, frustration, and grieving, all those challenging and adverse states of being, there can be a natural tendency to pull inward, like the closing of shutters when your house is going through a storm. Perfectly understandable, especially for the introverts in town. In thinking about this, I was led back to a theologian and spiritual mentor of mine, Parker Palmer, who in an article titled, "Breathe in My Life, Breathe Out My Gratitude," inspired by the poetry of Wendell Berry, wrote this: "It may be tempting to think of this Wendell Berry poem as only for people of a certain age. But that would be a mistake, or so it seems to me. The poem is not first and foremost about aging and dying. It's about generosity, one of the most life-giving of all virtues. The poem is titled Sabbaths 1993-1, and it goes like this. No, no, there is no going back. Less and less you are that possibility you were. More and more you have become those lives and deaths that have belonged to you. You have become a sort of grave containing much more that was and is no more in time, beloved then, now, and always. And so you've become actually sort of a tree standing over a grave. Now more than ever, you can be generous towards each day that comes, young, to disappear forever, and yet remain unaging in the mind. Every day you have less reason not to give yourself away." Then Palmer says, generosity does not require material abundance. When I think back on the many people who have been so generous towards me, I never think of money or things. Instead, I think of the way they gave me their presence, their confidence, their affirmation, support, and blessing. All gifts of self that any of us can give. And where does generosity come from, he asks? Perhaps from another life-giving virtue, the one called gratitude. When I take the time to breathe in my life and breathe out my gratitude for the gifts that I've been given, only one question arises. How can I keep these gifts alive? And he says, I know only one answer. Become a giver yourself and pass your gifts along, and do it extravagantly. How can I keep these gifts alive? The gifts for which I am forever filled with abundant gratitude. The gifts from every teacher who nurtured me when I was struggling. Every mentor who shared their wisdom. Every partner who showed me love in abundance. Every friend who took my hand in friendship. For this is, and so much more, I have had to ask, how can I be a giver of myself? Pass along my gifts and do it as extravagantly as possible. Think about that in the context of all those adverse states of being that I mentioned earlier, as well as adding the plain mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual exhaustion that so many of us have felt to various degrees. And instead of going in, instead of closing the shutters, instead of frankly pulling the covers over our heads and trying to navigate the next 4 years or more from the dark and cold of our bedrooms, What would it be to keep a spirit of gratitude, not only alive, but thriving through whatever times we face ahead, by abundantly sharing our gifts with each other, with our community, and with this world? Doesn't this then become a time not dictated to us by outside forces, but a time of mutual support, collective brainstorming that breeds creativity, innovation, and life-giving forces for good? Now, believe me, I get that some of us are about to travel to Thanksgiving, where there could easily be the sound of just chewing around the dinner table, as families avoid any topics that cause acid reflux. The holidays are indeed complicated. But I can't help but think when forces are actively trying to silence, intimidate, or just plain thrust a wedge between us, this kind of practice of gratitude and giving is both good for our souls and good for the world. So here we are, entering into a holiday season in a time of future events unknown, and for some of us, hard to even watch. And believe me, I'm not suggesting that you start doom scrolling or spending your time watching endless amounts of cable news. Please don't do that. But I am inviting you not to keep your head in the sand. We all need the gifts that each of us has to share, no matter the circumstances. Robin Wall Kimmerer, the author of Braiding Sweetgrass, says it better than me when she writes, "Even a wounded world is feeding us. Even a wounded world holds us, giving us moments of wonder and joy. I choose joy over despair, not because I have my head in the sand, but because joy is what the earth gives me daily, and I must return the gift." As we depart for our Thanksgiving holidays, as we acknowledge the complicated history of the holiday itself, as we find our way into families of origin or families of choice, as we contemplate the struggles and the blessings of our lives and the struggles and the blessings of the world, I invite you to take some time this coming week to think about from where generosity comes. And perhaps take at least a few moments away from this focus on the holiday season to contemplate this life-giving virtue, the one called gratitude. Take the time to breathe in life and breathe out gratitude for the gifts that have been given and for how we can keep these gifts alive. Maybe in a moment of reflection, consider how to pass your gifts along, and maybe even how to do it extravagantly. The idea that every day we have less reason not to give ourselves away may actually be one of the best ways we will not just be able to survive, but we may actually, over time, lead into a robust and abundant thriving. Wherever you are, and whatever you're doing this coming week, I will pray that you can find so many things for which to be grateful. May we all experience things that fill our hearts with meaning. That whether gathering locally or far away, you remember that here, you are always loved. And even with all the various feelings associated with this time in our collective lives, and at this time of year, I truly hope that whatever you do, whomever you are with, and wherever you are, you will have a sincere and meaningful experience of joy, connection, and love. May that be so, and amen.